How safe are our schools for children? This has been the raging topic of debate over the last few days after one horrific incident has come to light in a school in Gurugram and then another one in New Delhi, where children have been victims reportedly of sexual abuse and in one case even of murder. We thought that the best person to speak to about this big issue today is none other than Nobel Laureate Kailash Satyarthi, who has just embarked today itself on a 35-day Bharat Yatra to raise awareness about sexual abuse that children face. He's joining us on the phone line now from Kanyakumari. Sir, thank you so much for speaking with BloombergQuint. Your first comments on this entire debate going on over the last couple of days. Two horrific incidents have come to light. Many have been reported in the past as well. Are our schools really safe for our children?
It's very unfortunate that all of us want and work hard to ensure that every child is in a school, because we think and we believe that the schools are the safest heavens for those children and students. But unfortunately, it is not true. These are not two isolated incidents in Gurgaon and in Delhi. I came across many children who are traumatized now with the names of schools or study or teachers. I met number of parents who were so frightened to send their children to school in some places in and around Delhi, but also in other parts of India, because their children were raped and abused and nobody was listening to them. At least in these cases, the country is awake and everybody is talking about it. But schools are unfortunately not safe for our children. Those norms and legal parameters are not really adhered to.
So who is responsible, sir? Because here you have situation of parents camping outside the schools, and you're right that these two incidents are in the limelight perhaps because they're more well-known schools, the students are from a certain class of society. But who is responsible at the end of the day? Is it the people running the schools? Is it local governments, authorities? Who is the person who needs to act?
Actually, everybody has to act. It is the combination of all those factors that the schools who are making huge money out of parents and students, they do not follow those norms set for the security and safety of children, including the safety in the buses, in transit, in schools. So this is one. Also, it is the responsibility of the state authorities everywhere from the top to bottom. Central government, state governments, district governments and local governments have to ensure that the children are safe in schools, and the proper monitoring mechanisms have to be in place and they should be properly followed. And thirdly, I hardly know that our politicians ever visit schools. They go for some celebrity events or some programs just as chief guests. But it's very hard to tell that the important people in the villages and cities also don't visit schools except for being invited as the guests. And thirdly, the parents themselves who dream and aspire to make their children the big people, engineers, doctors, IAS officers and so on, company managers. But they should look into the safety measures taken by the school authorities. They hardly talk on such issues in the parent-teachers meetings. They normally talk about the issues related to the quality of education or marks and extracurricular activities, songs and dance and games and so on. But much more important is the safety of children in schools. So everybody has to take responsibility in this situation, and this should not happen again.
What is your advice for parents today? Because a lot of parents have probably made a beeline for their school authorities and asked, the authorities, how stringent are your checks in place? What would you tell parents today who are wondering how to ensure their children's safety when they send them to school?
Well, I deeply respect the sentiments and the anger of parents. I also spoke to a number of parents in Gurgaon, those who live near that school, and they are so frightened. And a number of residential welfare committees in Gurgaon and in Delhi started talking about it and even convening a meeting to raise their voice. But that should be something, a constant exercise that they should be concerned for the safety of their children. And their job is to ensure that once in a while, some of the leaders or representatives of the parent committee should visit the schools and check those things. And there should be a checklist in every school that these things are properly enforced. For example, the most vulnerable places are the toilets. Other vulnerable places are the places of drinking water. And these setups are not so safe because they are far from the classrooms, and the child, 6, 7, 8-year-old child goes to washroom alone or to take water alone. And similarly, the situation of the wells. I met number of children and their parents where the rapes and sexual abuses took place, and the culprit was the van driver or school bus driver. Within bus and van rape.
You know, you're embarking on this Yatra from today, Bharat Yatra. You will travel across 22 states, over 11,000 kilometers. What is the purpose of this mission, Mr. Satyarthi? And do you have a comment on why these cases are coming more to the fore? Because to the normal mind, it's just an obscene perversion. You cannot understand why someone would want to sexually abuse a small child. Just what do you make of it all, and tell us about what is the main purpose of this Bharat Yatra?
Well, the Bharat Yatra is not an ordinary campaign because the growing menace of child sexual abuse is not an ordinary crime. I would say it's a moral epidemic which is growing our society and haunting the entire nation and entire society. And that is creating a kind of fear and a sense of shame and different complexes. So we have to raise the voice against it. So what I call this Bharat Yatra is war on rape and sexual abuses and violence against children. Secondly, we also wanted to make sure that the laws of the land like POCSO is properly implemented. It's ironical to know that last year about 15,000 cases were registered under POCSO. That is, it is a very good law. But only 4% convictions and 6% acquittal resulted in the prosecutions. So 90% cases are pending in India. That is the NCRB statistics. In some states, it will take 40 years to dispose of those cases of child sexual abuse if no other such case takes place from now onwards. So it's a very pathetic situation. So we are holding the authorities accountable, but also sensitizing them and involving them. So one is creating awareness to break the silence, because in such cases, silence turns to violence and it perpetuates, it breeds more violence. And secondly, we wanted to see that more cases are reported, more prosecutions are made, and speedy redressal of such cases take place in India. So several things we are trying to take up. But another important thing, and I would say it is very unique in Bharat Yatra, is that we are involving all faith leaders together. Like today in Kanyakumari, the leaders from Hindus, Muslims, Sikh, Jain communities, Christian community, they were all on dais and they spoke very strongly and clearly.
As they should be, because this is an issue which affects everybody. Just one
But the thing is that they don't speak loudly and clearly. They try to hide this thing under the this so-called man maryada, or what we call honor, family honor, etc.
Maybe is one of the reasons for that, sir, what you mentioned, that conviction rates are so abysmal. And what about the suggestion which was made some time ago about a sexual offenders registry, like you have in some countries, that if someone has been convicted, they should not be allowed to just get away and start up afresh somewhere else where they can find new victims?
Absolutely. So we are demanding few things. One is that the fast-track and child-friendly courts should be established in at least each district to dispose of all those cases related to sexual abuse in particular, but crime against children in general. Secondly, we have to appoint trained, sensitized, exclusive, specialized judges to deal with such cases, and it should be in time-bound manner. So the speedy trials should be made. Victims and witnesses protection has to be guaranteed. So those things are related to the court and justice delivery. But another thing which we have been raising is this registry of all those offenders.
Yes.
And social boycott is a part of it. So once it appears public domain that these are the abusers and rapists, then it would turn into a huge stigma on them instead of the stigma being put on the victims. It is very sick mentality that when a girl is raped, the society, family, everybody says that now she is not pure, she is, her honor has been robbed off and so on. So that it puts in a stigma, but that stigma should be put on the rapists and the abusers.
Well, perhaps stigma is not enough. There should be a real exemplary, strict punishment and full force of the law perhaps should be applied to such sick perverts. There's no other word for them really. Thank you so much, Kailash, Satyarthi, for speaking with us. Best wishes for your Bharat Yatra. More power to you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.